Hope everybody is having a good morning. Um, oh, spring cleaning always makes me feel better. I don't like to clean though, but like the after effect always makes me feel better. Like, oh yay, I did something. Um, Thank you, Eden. I'm doing good. I can't stop waking up bright and early, so I thought I'd come in and do this before I ran and did other things today. And then I also want to try and come back in again a little bit later. I'm trying to make sure that the information reaches everybody just because um, it's so new again that I don't think it's going out to everyone. And so I'm trying to make sure that like I can get it out to everybody, um, which isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world to make sure I'm doing. So I'm trying to make sure and share it all. Hello, beautiful. I'm going to add you as a mod. Uh, So I I am asking right now that people please make sure and like and share the live as much as possible, as well as comment. Those things will boost it on the feed so people can think it. Um, Listen, it's only 6:30 in the morning. People can think it, um, so people can see it. Um, and then I'm asking if you just tap the screen as much as possible, just so it gets up higher in the feed, just so we can get a good, algorithm going. Um, Obviously, I don't really care usually if people are liking and sharing, but just as we're getting started up again on this account, just so it can push it up on the algorithm. As always, I really encourage comments. Not only does it push it up in the algorithm, but the interaction helps me. It makes my focus easier. Sometimes, I mean, we've all seen me go down a path because somebody said the stupid shit. But sometimes when they say the stupid part out loud, somebody should go down the path anyway. So um, I'm just trying to get it pushed up a little bit more right now. And I do always love the comments. For me, it's really awesome that a lot of times in here we'll get people who are actually having really good educational discussions going on, and I don't even have to answer the questions because people know, which is really cool to me. So I want to make sure that the interaction is there. It's so helpful for me for the interaction. And the community I think that it tends to create is important to me as well, to have that ability to create community for everybody, because I think out here we have a lot of people where it's hard to have community, it's hard to have interaction with friends, it's hard to have interaction, just period. And so to have some community, I think it is really a plus for most people. Like it's a really a positive for most people. So I want to make sure that that happens as well. Um, so again, I encourage any comments, anyways, and always. Right now, I would ask that if you enjoy being here, you tap the screen and push it up a little bit on the algorithm, and share to as many people as possible that you think might be interested, just so that we can get back on some semblance of a track. I'm really glad. I'm really glad that it's really awesome that I can tell where people are from anymore by what greetings that they're using. Hani washte. It's good to see you this morning. Um, it's trying to get back into a space where I, have the ability for the like-minded interaction has really been a journey and kind of cool to see, and at the same time, very frustrating. I am at this point of time, though, I just woke up this morning, so I haven't fixed it up yet. I'm trying to get, or I'm going to get a Facebook set up that's not my personal Facebook, and set that up on the website. I'm also getting, I have the Instagram on the website, and I'm working more on cross posting things onto the Instagram. Um, onto the Instagram. I sound like I'm 80. Uh, Again, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Um, and I am just working on a few other things to kind of try and cross platform a little bit more. So if something happens and, this isn't the best place, but there's ways to cross platform a little bit more. I try to do podcasts, but it doesn't have interaction. And without the interaction, it makes it difficult for me. I can't seem to I defocus, like my conversation goes sideways and I can't have a focal point, like it doesn't keep me in check. So it's a little bit harder to do the podcast for me. Now that we have the interaction again, it might be a little bit easier to do the podcast. Same. Actually, I think I've been up roughly an hour now, but I've been out of bed for 20 minutes. I woke up at like 5:20 or a little bit before, and then I've been like, okay, I best get out of bed. My stories are going and it's not helping. So I guess I'll get the fuck up. Um, but so I'm hoping to just cross platform a little bit more just to make it a little bit easier. I've also been doing a lot more writing lately. I'm working on another book. This one is, I've been told for, yeah, that's true. I've been told for a long time that I really need to write my life story, like, because of the childhood that I had being so different and so cross cultural and so intersectional, and just relatively weird. Um, I've been told for a long time that I need to write that down. And so I'm kind of working on that. For me, though, writing like a story of my life has been something that has been hard because, at what point do you end it, right? Like, here I am just sitting in my house, right? Like, is that how you end the story? Um, and so I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this story of my life and write the first half of it as the uh, history of my, the things that I've gone through, and then write the second half of it as more of a fantasy of the achievement of what I hope to achieve, if that makes sense. So, like, the first half of it will be the things that I've gone through and the things that I've done, and then the second half is going to be the minds changed and the burn it to the ground and the post burn it to the ground, right? So that it's so that I can figure out how to write it, I guess is the best way to put it. So I've been working on that a little bit. And I've been working on some research on a couple of different subjects too. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Just I try and make sure I keep people updated, um, and trying to kind of just shift focus. And I stopped taking my meds with doctor's permission, because they were making me sick. And so I'm trying to figure out how to rework things with that. I've also been doing a lot of artwork lately, which is also always really helpful for me. Um, Making and creating has always been something that's been very helpful for me. I'm actually thinking I want to go and pick up things from Goodwill and paint them like boxes and paint pretty things on them, like I did with my shoes. I'm like, I just want to paint shit. So that's kind of where I've been. I'm trying to, you know, Yeah, it is. It is really, and it's so I was just getting sick. Like I couldn't sleep very well. And like I would be up all night long, like with this kind of, I felt like I was on too much speed or something. Like, not like I've ever done speed, but like you I mean, I think I did. I don't even remember what it's what's called, but they had those like pills when the 80s and 90s that were like no dose or something like that, that was like a caffeine pill, right? It's almost like doing too much caffeine or too much of a stimulant, where like your body feels too hyper and your body feels too hyper. And so like my stomach felt too hyper. And it wasn't like I was nauseous, like I was going to throw up, but it was nauseous, like I just was too overstimulated. And so I wasn't sleeping, and I wasn't able to function. And so I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have to stop. I've been trying to cut back on everything. Like I have not been smoking my medicines as much as possible, or, as much as I usually do. I've been cutting back on my caffeine intake. I'm just trying to cut back on everything. The one thing I can't seem to cut back on and is my sugar addiction. Um, and I've noticed since I went off the medicine, I've probably gained like 10 pounds. Like I looked in the mirror the other day and I went, shit, like, well, I guess my body not being hyperactive is causing a little bit of weight gain here. So I'm just trying to re-regulate so I can get to a point where I'm not sick all the time. I'm just tired of being sick all the time, right? Like it's bad enough that I have days and weeks where I can't walk. I don't want to be like physically unable to, even sit down comfortably. So um, I was just talking about, the different things, going over the different things that I'm doing right now to try and to work through things. And then I was talking about the meds. Um, I am working really hard right now on trying to cross platform a little bit, just because if we run into this issue again, I want people to be able to find me on other places. So I'm trying to cross platform things a little bit better, putting the cross platforms in the website so that people can find them a little bit easier. And then I'm also working on trying to uh, I'm working on doing more things in the creative side. So I've been writing a lot more. I'm working on the books that I've been working on. And then I've also been doing more art stuff. Um, I am asking everybody as we go through the next few days that everybody does a more tapping and sharing. And of course, I always love the comments to kind of interact myself, and also to bring it up in the algorithm, and also to interact together. I think it brings a little more community. I've actually been, I wrote and published this last year. This is a book I did called We Are We. I'll read to you this morning. This one is written to my Auntie Lisa. This is one is going to her. This book is for my mother, Rebecca, who taught me connection. For my other mothers, Kay, Marcy, Lisa, and Kat, who have helped teach or reinforce that understanding. It is for my children who I have tried to teach these things and hope they continue to understand them. And for my grandchildren in the hopes that they carry on the connection. Here, I'll do it this way so you guys can see the book itself. Maybe. TikTok, behave. And for my grandchildren in the hopes that they can carry on the connection to the Mother Earth that I have worked hard to instill in them. Finally, it is for all of us, for we are all one, and only by all of us understanding and healing can we heal ourselves and the planet. To the caregivers reading this book is meant to teach many different points. That art is filled with mistakes, and those mistakes make art more beautiful, like life is filled with mistakes, and those mistakes make life more beautiful. That when one is panicked or uncomfortable, grounding and centering to the world around you will bring you back to the present and help with that panic. And that the world is more than us. It is an entire community we are connected to. Please feel free to point out all or none of these things as you read this to your learning people. Use me drawing. I am you, and you are me, and we are we. I sit today in this space, feeling my tendrils reaching out, wiggling until they bury in the ground beneath me, soaking up the soil's nutrients. Actually, I haven't read this one, so I'll go like on TikTok. So I'll go ahead and read it. It's short and pretty. I like this book. I mean, I'm biased, but I like this book. Inhaling deeply to take in the smells of the world around me, I could taste growth and sweet dirt in the air. Listening to the sounds of the world around me, I call this my biome, my home. The other books that I'm writing are more novel and less children's books. So I'm working on a couple of them. I am it, and it is me, and we are we. Feeling Earth's deeply beating heart flow into me. Up through my tailbone to the top of my skull, her heart's rhythm molds me. Each circular path of air traveling through my being weaves a melody of awareness of the energies around me. I am her, and she is me, and we are we. I sit today in this space, feeling the sun's touch as the sweetest of love. Warm and giving of goodness and light, feeding the we, feeding the me, waves of energy. I did, and this is all done with watercolor color pencils. And so you'll see as it progresses that it adds more and more to it. And then at the very end, I actually use water to paint it out and kind of blend it in. Soaked into my body till it blossoms in my core. And this is all just one picture that I took pictures of as I made the steps of the artwork itself. I am energy, and energy is me, and we are we. This one's on Amazon, and it's We Are We, and the author's name is Sarah Tweedy. It's my stepfather's last name that I grew up with. I am energy, and energy is me, and we are we. I sit today in this space, hearing the chittering of the squirrel, the song of the bird in their tree. Absolutely. Thank you for being interested in buying it. It should be free on Kindle as well still, if you have Kindle Unlimited. The trees whose roots grow and stretch out through the soil to me, rooting together in the world as we sing a language built of energy. I am they, and they are me, and we are we. I sit today in this space, grounded and connected to all the beings in the biome that is we. I lift my song to join the chittering, the flow, the breeze, the bird. Interwoven with the earth, tender and tending. My space in the biome realized in the care that I provide. Knowing each spark of energy, nutrient, song that goes missing is felt to the depth of me. For I am us, and us is me, and we are we. It's a short book because it is for children. I am working on two pretty much novel length books. Actually, I'm working on, and I've talked before about Drengur Skojan, BJ 581, which is the book that I'm working on about BJ 581, the grave that is the Viking warrior woman, basically the largest or the most highest ranking grave that we've ever found in Scandinavia, which showed to be female in 2017 biologically. And then the new book that I'm working on, I'm not exactly sure yet what I'm going to call it, but it is more of a truth and fantasy book because it starts with truth or reality and then it ends with fantasy. So it's a little bit more of a, I can't write things in a normal way. It all has to be done something completely different than what we see around us, just because I have a hard time looking at what we see around us and having it register well for me. The things that we deal with a lot of the times, I think, and what we see around us is hard for me to register and for it to work for me. So I'm doing it a little bit differently. But today I want to talk about some of the subjects that we talk about in here. I'm trying to bring in some of the earlier subjects so that I can attract people back in so that people can see it and get back to where we were. I mean, I hate to say it or not that I hate. The way to say it, or the most logical way to say it, doesn't exactly sound the way that it's meant yet getting back up to the higher numbers so that we can get up higher in the algorithm. Most people who've been in a minute know that it's not necessarily like I want the followers to have the money or the things like that. And well, I've been accused of trying to start a cult. It's definitely not that. Yet I feel like every person that I reach is another person that hears the message that I'm trying to impart, or gets the ability to see things in a different way. And so trying to get back up to reaching people on a greater level is huge. Um, so that's what I'm working on right now. And I kind of wanted to talk about some of the earlier subjects. And I'm trying to make sure that it's a little bit more clickbait as you're scrolling through. Absolutely. You're so welcome. And that is for free on the Kindle Unlimited app. And it's pretty cheap. I don't remember what I have it set up on Amazon. I know I set it as pretty cheap on Amazon. I just don't remember if I have it, um, what the price is that I have it at. It's $2.50 to buy on Kindle if you need to buy it on Kindle instead of using the Kindle Unlimited, and then it's $10 in the paperback form. They wouldn't let me set it much cheaper than that. So I'm trying to set them down as relatively cheap. So absolutely. Tweety is Tweedy. So the title is We Are We. And then, you know what? Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can do it this way. I don't think I've actually got it on the, I have the other book on my website, the Right to Life on the website, but I don't think I have this. I do not. So let me go ahead and put this on this one. Let me see if I can do this in a way that, oh, that's why maybe. Huh. See if I can get it put up on there so that you can just get it from the website. Maybe I can. There it is. So it is just like a little text on the website right above the YouTube spot on the, or not YouTube, the TikTok spot on the website. Um, so if you go to the main homepage on the website and you scroll down, it's on the left-hand side and it says We Are We by Sarah Tweedy, a children's book. And it's right above the TikTok click so that you can get to me via TikTok. So that might make it a little bit easier to get to. I just hadn't put it on the website for some reason yet. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm such an avid reader and I don't want to pay for things, so I use it that way. I want to try and get it. I've been meaning to, and I should do this week, is actually read it out as a video and put it. The problem is that I have these ideas of how I want to do it. I'd really love to do it sitting down in the chair in my office, but the chair in my office is currently covered with stuff because of the fact that I had to redo my um, redo my laundry room, and so it's got all the boxes that hadn't been unpacked that were in the box in the laundry room, and I need to put those in a different closet so I can set this up so that it can sit down there, and I want to sit there and read it like I would read it to somebody for a YouTube video or a TikTok video, but I haven't gotten to that, so I'll try and get that this week so that it is something that's just read and so it can be visualized. It can be found. Oh, excuse me. So I'll work on that so it's a little bit easier to access. Trying to make sure things are easy to access, of course. Um, so I kind of want to talk about a few of the things that we've talked about in here before. And we've been talking over the last day about a couple of the things. I need one more day of going live before I can allow guests up. And I think before it gives me certain things, like I can't readjust my picture at this point. Like this is the screen that we get. It's a full length and it takes up half of this. Um, but I'm working on hopefully after today it will get, or not today, after tomorrow it'll get me to where I have enough live cred within the lives to be able to do a couple different things. It might actually pull it up a little bit higher in the algorithm after that as well. I want to talk though, and we've talked about these subjects before. We've worked on these subjects before, and I know that most of the people that I've seen come in and talking, uh, yeah, what? No, I won't. This is gonna just do me in. It's just gonna do me in. I mean, how am I gonna live through this? I mean, I just don't know. My skin's really light, and when our skin is really light, it's harder for us to live through shit. Sorry, had to. Um, so, uh, I I want to go ahead and touch on some of the things. I know that most of the people in here know these things, though. We don't have a whole lot of people in here right now, and every one foot in front of the other. I am entitled to more than that. Um, I I know that most people in here know most of these subjects, and we've talked about them before, so they're going to be just rehashing old hats. But Skoden, Dory, with Tira, you're gonna make me laugh too hard. Um, but I do want to go ahead and touch on some of the subjects just because they are things that people coming through or scrolling by might not kind of know, right? So, I think we can just start with the list as it goes down, unless there's any questions on the list. I know that most people in here, we've had these discussions, so they probably don't have a whole lot of questions. But if there are questions on the list, I'm definitely willing to answer them and go through them. But I think other than that, we can go ahead and start with the top of it. The reason that I state that religion deifies narcissism, um, when we look at religion versus spirituality, we can see that with religion, there is this sense that there is many different processes of spirituality have a higher power, a deity of some form, right? It's not that, spirituality doesn't have higher powers, spirituality may not necessarily have a higher power that is uh, to construct the church. Sorry, now I'm caught. Uh, it is not whether or not you have a higher power that makes something a religion versus a spirituality. Many spiritualities have higher powers within them. Um, and having a higher power, having a deity is not necessarily a narcissistic thought process. Even deities aren't necessarily narcissistic. There are many deities out there who I would not define as narcissistic. Um, Having the thought process that one's deity is the only deity that exists, or that others should live based on one idea of a deity is problematic for me. That's not necessarily where, for me, the narcissism comes into play. There are many people out there who follow organized religion faith that follow it in a manner that is more of a animistic thought process, right? That mix that with a more animistic, maybe a more indigenous thought process, um, maybe a more pre-religious thought process, and in that mix of the like, I know many people who are Christian whose thought on Christianity does not follow the textbook thought on Christianity. Personally, I have no problem with Yeshua. I've never had a problem with Yeshua. Yeshua taught love. Yeshua went and said, "Hey, this is not working. We need to make some changes. You're not really following a loving perspective. This is supposed to be about love, right?" Um, and there are many people out there who are Christian who take Yeshua's teachings of love and translate them into a more communal and more animistic sense. Many of these people aren't the ones who are going to church every Sunday or 5 times a week. They're the ones that are quietly living lives of love and community, right? They're not the ones that are out there pushing religion on others. They're not the ones that are out there deciding that lives need to be led by their standards. They're the ones out there who are providing for community. They're the ones out there that are working for community. They're the ones out there trying to show love, right? Trying to, ensure that we have less houseless people, trying to ensure that elders are fed, trying to ensure that people are taken care of, right? Um, these are people who might be following a religion that has very many elements of narcissism within it, or might be following a religion that has very many elements of problematic thought process in it. Yet they have taken that and translated it into the teachings of love that can be seen. Um, and they are basing their faith not on the narcissistic aspects of it, of the faith itself on a broader scheme, but basing their faith on a communal and loving aspect, right? I personally believe that faith is important for people. I don't believe that that has to be a specific faith. I just believe that believing in outside of yourself is important. And the reason that I think that believing in outside of yourself is important is because if we are spending our lives focused on self instead of focused on community, spending our lives focused on our own advancement instead of focusing on our family, our community, our being better for others, right? If we're spending our lives focused on a very narrow self-centered and self-absorbed thought process as opposed to spending our lives focused on interaction within community, the we are we, the broader space, it is that becomes problematic. Yet that is problematic. Yet, if you have a belief that there's more to this than just you, right? That it is not centered on self, which can be a very narcissistic take, but centered on community, which is more of a communal take, more of an interactive take, more of a take of love. That to me is healthy. That to me is biologically sound. That to me makes sense within the scientific thought process of it. And that to me um, gives a sense of staying power. If you're only focused on self and you're only focused on self gratification, eventually, why are you even here, right? Um, so when you are focused on an outer community, on a broader sense of self than just yourself, the robot vacuum started and it's loud, so I had to close things. um if you're focused on a broader sense of thought process than just yourself, that broader sense of thought process than just yourself gives that ability to, when you look at thought process through an animistic eye, or look at thought process through the eye of being all a part of the same, right? Like, energy all intermixes, or what happens to one is something that affects all, or taking care of others is important. When you look at thought processes, a communal thought processes, instead of looking thought processes as an individual thought process, this gives you a greater sense of worth, a greater sense of being okay, I guess is the best way that I can put it, and a greater sense of being, for us, if we don't feel like we belong, if we don't feel like we're a part of community, if we don't feel like we have family, if we don't feel like we have, an intersection or an interspace where there's others, right? We That disconnect is very traumatic to our mental state, right? Having that interconnect is very healthy for our mental state. So I believe that we should have faith in something outside of us. Now, whether or not that faith in something outside of us is, you believe the earth between beneath your toes is important and is a deity, or is a biome, or is a part of all of us, or you believe that your um, town that you belong to is a community and that's your greater sense of self, or if you believe in a range of deities, or if you believe in a singular deity. Um, it doesn't matter, as long as that greater sense of self is ethically, for me, as long as that greater sense of self is about taking care of others. It's about love. It's about community. It's about interaction, right? And some people have that idea of a greater sense of self that doesn't seem to have a lot of love in it. When we look at the start of religion, we see that the start of religion versus the start of spirituality is only a few thousand years old. Um, Religion becomes something that is more organized when we start to or that is more religion, when we start to see the first buildings of cities that have a hierarchy within them, and that need for that hierarchy to be maintained. A few different things. Have a great day. Much love. Thank you for coming in, lovely one. um, and I agree with the deities as a point of focus energy. And when we were talking about the Bad Nuremberg shaman, that's definitely one of those things where I think it's definitely how we create deities. When we get to the early uh, narcissistic god kings that we've talked about in here, and we get to the early city structures and the early hierarchies, we see this need to create control to maintain power, right? And in that need to create power and control, we've talked before about othering. You know, it's the barbarians in the hills who are going to kill you. It's not me. They're the ones that want to steal your grain, so you best give it to me to keep it safe and hoard it for you. Um, to maintain that control, othering is a huge portion of that control, yet a state religion will really solidify that control. Now, currently, we like to think in the United States that we don't have a state religion, and yet our state religion is money. Our state religion is buying shit, right? Our state religion is acquisition. Um, and so we can see that state religions have been different things throughout the centuries. Our earliest state religions revolve around several deities, usually um, pantheons of gods. And usually, those pantheons of gods have some way of including the current person in charge, the current head of the hierarchy. And so we can see within the narcissistic God King thought process that state religion becomes that method of control. This is where religion becomes organized. This is where it becomes religion instead of spirituality. Spirituality is believing in the more, right? Whereas religion is believing in an organized more, right? In a spiritual sense, when you have like a pantheon of gods, say, and you belong to an animistic thought process instead of a hierarchical thought process, having that pantheon of gods I may worship Isis and you may worship Juno. Um, and that's okay. I'm not sitting here going, well, you have to worship ISIS because I worship ISIS and ISIS takes care of childbirth. And I think that you should be taking care of childbirth. So why aren't you worshiping ISIS, right? In um, a pantheon or a spirituality that has that um, sense of it being more about equity and about spirituality and about connection than it is about control, we see that deities can be a huge part of that, and yet those deities don't, they're not very narcissistic in their thought process. Some of them are, right? Like Zeus is narcissistic. There's just no way to get around Zeus being a fucking narcissist, right? Yet I would state that there are definitely gods within the pantheon of ancient Roman and Greek pantheons that are not, right? I would say Hephaestus is probably not a narcissist. He doesn't seem narcissistic in his interactions, right? Um, I would say that Demeter is not narcissistic in her interactions. I would say that Persephone is not narcissistic in her interactions. I would say Hades is definitely narcissistic in his interactions. I would say Zeus is definitely narcissistic in his interactions. I would say Hera is definitely narcissistic in her interactions. Yet you can see within this pantheon where um, there's this understanding that Zeus is a narcissist. There's this understanding that Hera is a narcissist. There's this understanding that Hades is a narcissist. It's excused because they're gods. There's this understanding that Demeter is not, right? And there's this understanding that gods are more of a archetype of humanity. Have a great one. Tell Bear I said hi. Um, there's this understanding that you don't have to pick the narcissistic asshole to worship. You can pick, like Zeus may be a narcissist and he may expect everybody to treat him with respect and deification. Yet if you're not worshiping him, instead you're worshiping Demeter, he's going to go, well, okay, you're not one of mine, right? I'll go find one of mine, right? So even in these earlier pantheons and iterations, which do come after we see city states, after we see that need to maintain control. Have a great one, Lexi. Um, that's awesome. Have a good class. Having that control, having that need to be the one and only, right? Or the need to be in control of space really solidifies pantheons. We don't really get pantheons until, for the most part, until we get that. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't spaces that have pantheons of gods who do not have um, uh, hierarchical communities, right? There are pantheons of deities within indigenous nations that don't have hierarchical communities, right? There are many indigenous nations who aren't actually hierarchical in their communal interaction, and they do have, and I say pantheons of deities because sometimes these pantheons of deities aren't necessarily humanistic in their deity, in their form, right? So, the partner is home. So when we see this, we can see that this translation of go get him. This translation of having hierarchy can really double down into the deification of gods, right? When we see the need to be the only, right, is where we can really see the translation of narcissism becoming something that gets deified, becoming something that becomes in itself worshipped, right? Um, needing to be the biggest, the most powerful, and the best. That's a very narcissistic thought process, and not necessarily an NPD thought process, yet a narcissistic thought process, right? So it's not necessarily a disorder, it is still a narcissistic thought process. So when we get to the point where power needs to maintain control by being the most important and by being bowed down to, is where we start to see this translate. Partner came home like an hour earlier than I expected him to. So I am going to go ahead and get off so I can actually see my partner, because we don't see each other a lot because of their schedule recently. But I will be back later today, at least once, if not twice. I'm probably going to be back late morning, and then I'm probably going to be back this evening as well. I am going to cut it short without doing my typical, but I do want to remind you, and I know most of you in here have heard the whole spiel behind it, that you deserve grace and love, that you are worthy of grace and love just by existing. And I want to ask you to remember today that you are worthy and you are beautiful. You deserve grace and love, and to take care of yourself, because oftentimes somebody else isn't doing it for you. Okay. I will be back today and we will talk about this stuff a little bit more. Have a great day and may it be beautiful and blessed until I see you again later. Much love, everybody. Bye, YouTube. Much love to you. I'll be back later today and I'll be back on here, so it should alert you. And then I will see you guys then and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Much love.